Welcome into the episode of Patrick Jones Baseball. This week on the podcast, I sit down with Nathan Collier, and Nathan is the Director of Recruiting Operations for Patrick Jones Baseball. He also coaches baseball as well, too. And so what we are talking about this week is making in-season adjustments from a mindset standpoint, being process-oriented. And everyone says that, but what does that mean? And then we also talk about different scenarios and different things that parents and players can do to help them from a mental standpoint in season and then in the off season as well too. So hope you enjoy today's episode of Patrick Jones Baseball.
All right, Patrick, let's talk mental game. What
What-
do we need to cover?
Let's do what do we need to cover, man? What do we need to cover about a topic that scientists don't even know everything about when it comes to the brain, much less two guys talking some baseball on here. But I think we can cover enough to help players this season. I'll say that. And I think the biggest thing that I see now, the season has started. I've been to several games. I'm currently in Arizona. I'm getting ready to head back to Ohio. And so I've been to some college games out here. I've been to some high school games now. And one of the things that I see a lot of times is players who, I call this the I'm screwed syndrome. I call this I'm screwed syndrome. And essentially what that is players don't realize is there's going to be mistakes within the at-bat. And so a lot of times what I see is when I see a hitter up at the plate, they may make a mistake early in the count and it takes them off their plan and they end up giving the at-bat away. And perfect example would be swinging and missing at a ball first pitch that's clearly outside the strike zone. And it's like, man, like obviously that wasn't part of the plan. And so that can get your confidence down right out of the gate. But what players don't realize is, and this is the value of watching full games on TV and not just watching the Instagram highlights, because if you watched full games of major league hitters, what you would realize is they make mistakes within the at-bat. It happens all the time. They're swinging and missing sometimes at strikes, sometimes at balls, sometimes they're taking pitches that they shouldn't have taken. But the difference is they're not in necessarily judgmental mode. They're in observation mode. And as a hitter, we want to be more of an observer than we want to be judgmental about ourselves. Because when you're in observation mode, you're not judging any decision that you currently just made. You're just observing what's going on. Like, okay, he's starting me out. Maybe it's away, or maybe it's inside, or I'm seeing that his fastball has a little bit more ride on it than I thought it was. Things like that, or I swing and miss at that breaking ball, but I see where it started now, so I know where it needs to start for me to swing at the next pitch. You're more of an observer than anything else. And I think if you can change your mindset into that observation mode, it's going to get you out of that I'm screwed syndrome mode where you made one mistake early in the at bat and that makes the rest of the at bat, you pretty much just give it away. And I think the best hitters in the world, they make several mistakes within the at bat and then they'll end up hitting the home run. And that's what you see, but you didn't see how they got to that count to begin with. And I just think that's something that I think more players would benefit from, is just viewing themselves as more of an observer when they're at the plate.
So how do they do that? How do you do that? Like, so let's just say, for example, you come up to the plate and it's your first time playing a varsity game. Like, it's a new season, get your first varsity at bat. And on the first pitch, you swing at something, in your eyes. Like, how do you not take that and let it affect the rest of your game when because I've been around these kids, they're thinking the varsity coach is watching me. My parents are watching me. There's way more people watching than ever before. I could get benched if I don't succeed. How do you do that?
Yeah, well, I think the first thing is, this is something else that I wrote down is, and I mean, this happens to me personally all the time, where we have these plans and then we try to execute a plan, or we have our schedules time blocked or something like that. And then something happens and it's like, most of the time, I think a lot of people will be like, oh, here we go again. I can't stick with anything. I can't do anything right. I can't execute a plan. I can't. Where the reality is you have to expect that you're going to struggle. Like, you have to expect the fact that you're going to fail. I mean, how could you not? If you're hitting 499 off of a pitcher, statistically, he still has the advantage over you. So I think we need to, the first thing is to get into understand that you're going to get out. If Shohei Ohtani played for Yellow Springs High School, he would go over in a game. He would. And he would
Yeah.
go over in a game and he wouldn't hit one ball hard. Now, would that happen every other game? Probably not, but it would happen at some point. That's just the way the game is, even against as a bad pitching. That's the way it would happen. And so I think that's the very first thing is just expectations of knowing that you're gonna make mistakes. It will happen. It's more so about having conviction in whatever it is you're trying to do each pitch. And so that's part of my first answer to your question. The second answer to your question, and this is hard, it takes time too, is it comes down to just what does a successful at bat look like? And you mentioned a kid swinging at a pitch at his eyes. Well, maybe for that particular kid, when he hits his best, he's really aggressive. Let's just say, let's just say, like when you're hitting your best, what are you thinking? What are you feeling? What are you doing? So let's say maybe for you, it's, hey, I'm just really relaxed. I'm not thinking of much. I'm just really aggressive though. I'm relaxed, but I'm aggressive. Great. So if you went up to the plate and you were both of those things, and that's when you hit your best, and first pitch, you swing and miss, and it's a ball outside the strike zone. Okay, we still got two more. And I don't view that as a bad, bad at bat or bad anything, because you stuck to what you said you do when you're hitting best, which is being relaxed and being aggressive. Now, the issue becomes the external, because you have parents who have never played professional baseball or been in baseball for a long period of time. I'm not saying that to be mean, or at a high level in general. What I'm saying that because they don't understand that for a player to truly understand, they need to fail a lot. They need to fail a lot. And we were talking about this a little bit before. This will all come back for full circle. But the reason why players in professional baseball are more process driven than at the college or high school level. Of course, they're older for sure, no doubt about that. But the second reason is because they fail a lot more. They fail a lot more, and they play so many games that they realize they don't have the energy to be able to obsess over every single at bat, because they play every single day. And so if you did that, you would just be your energy level would be on zero. You'd be out of gas so quickly. And so it forces you to be process driven. It forces you to not be obsessed with every single at bat and what happened and things like that. Whereas with the younger kids at the high school and the college level, they don't play that many games. And because of that, every game feels like it matters so much, because it does. But what I'm getting at is that makes it feel like you have to be perfect right now, because it's so outcome driven. And so it's actually backwards. Like, you really need to you want that process mindset at a younger age more than ever. But the game isn't designed that, because if I go up to the plate, Nathan, you're the head coach at Yellow Springs High School, and I go up to the plate and I go for three and I'm hitting six in the six hole. And then that next game I go and check the lineup and I'm on the bench now. My brain just connected and just tagged, hey, when I don't get a hit, I'm on the bench. And so what do you think is going to happen that next game? If
Yeah.
that next game, when I get up to the plate, I'm thinking, if I don't get a hit in each of these at bats, I'm going to be right back on the bench. And then that's what spirals and ends up becoming the bigger issue. Does that make sense?
Yeah. There's an old movie called The Replacements with Keanu Reeves where he talks about this in a football setting. They call it quicksand, where it's like it snowballs. It just sort of like captures you and you can't get out of it once you get into that place. So I like that idea.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, it's tough. And I was talking to a college coach the other day about this too, where we were talking about the success piece that we're talking about right now. And he said, here's the issue with that. Kid goes 0 for 4, and he does exactly what you said, where it's like, from a success standpoint, it's like, hey, when I'm hitting my best, I'm relaxed, I'm aggressive. And if I do that 4 times, no matter what happens, if I go 0 for 4 for 4 groundouts or whatever, in my book, I went 4 for 4. And over the course of the season, that's going to equate to more success from maybe an outcome standpoint, as the game would call it. But he said the problem with that is, a kid goes on social media after the game or gets his phone after the game,
Yeah.
and he sees everyone else posting that they're 3 for 3 and 4 for 4, and he sees his stat line online is 0 for 4, and it's hard for them to buy in at that point and stay convicted of that. And he even said this, he says, only the best players will do that. Only the best players will commit and have that conviction in that process mindset of what we're talking about success. And if only the best are doing it, then that means 99% of players aren't going to do that. They're going to revert back to what's comfortable, which is being outcome driven.
Is it true that if you take this process approach, that your outcomes will be better over the course of the season?
100%. There's not, you could take every dollar in my bank account if I'm serious, if you bought into it and you did it, it's literally, it would be impossible for your numbers not to be better. It's
When did you
impossible.
learn this? When did
Well, I mean, it's too late for me. I think I was 30 years old, but I was 30 years old. But what I do is, and people sometimes I think at times online they see the conviction that I have when I say stuff like this, and they're like, "Man, maybe this guy is he arrogant? Is he this or that?" No, I'm not that smart. But what I've realized a long time ago is like, okay, I'm not that smart, but I want all the information. I want all the knowledge. And so what I've always done for a decade now, since I've been coaching and things like that in this game, is I identify really talented people and then I hire them to teach me. And so I started doing this years ago where I would pay coaches who are at higher levels than me and more knowledge than me. I'd pay them one on one, whether it be $150 an hour or whatever it is. And the amount of knowledge that I get and I continue to still do that, is it allows me to help players at such a higher rate and educate players across the country and at scale, because now I've learned information that someone else who has spent a decade, 2 decades studying something specific like the mental game, which I've done several times with coaches who are in the major leagues right now, and from a mental performance standpoint, working with the best players in the world and the best teams in the world. And then they're teaching me what they've learned, what they've seen work, what they've seen not work, and that accelerates my own knowledge combined with my own personal experience working with players and so on and so forth. And so you can kind of see where I'm getting at. And so
Yeah.
that's why I know this stuff, because I know the best players in the world who are doing it and their outcome, and then the players who don't do it and don't buy in. And obviously, I can't say their specific names because I want to continue to work with some of these coaches. So I don't want to say the players' names or reference any examples, but that's why I have so much conviction in it.
Yeah. You had some of these experiences when you were playing as well on the process side of things.
I had all these. I made every single mistake. I didn't. That's the problem. Is I made all these mistakes as a player. Nathan, I legitimately, when I was in college, I started out this. I would start out the season and I would be struggling or whatever. And on the bus ride, I would get the calculator out on my phone and I would calculate, okay, right now I'm hitting 233. Okay, for my next 25 bats, if I go, it'd always be something really unrealistic. If I go 13 for my next 25, then I'll be hitting 375. I can do it. And then the next game, I would start out and I would go 0 for 3. And then in my mind, I'd be like, okay, now I got to go 16 for my next one,
Yeah. Yeah.
21 or
Yeah.
22. So I've
Yeah.
made every mistake possible. The point being is, and I know what not to do and what we shouldn't focus on. Being outcome driven like that, the problem with that is you burn out faster because you're doing things for the wrong reason and you're the only person you're really thinking about is you. So it's really selfish more than anything else because you're just thinking about how you're hitting, how you're doing. And so if you start thinking about how you can, as cliche it is, help out one of your teammates, think about your teammates, what that does is it frees you up personally. Now you're not thinking about yourself as much. And when you don't think about yourself as much, it frees you up to now just go play. And when you just go play, you end up getting better numbers. I never was smart enough to put those two and two together as a player, but I've seen that now so many times with really, really successful high level players. Parents, are you tired of spending money going from showcase to camp, not even knowing if a coach is even looking for your son's position or even knows his name? One of the reasons that I started my college baseball recruiting service is to help guide families throughout the recruiting process so you're not having to waste money and time going from showcase or camp to camp. If you're interested in hearing more about how I can help your son, head to patrickjonesbaseball.com and fill out the form. That's patrickjonesbaseball.com, fill out the form right on the homepage, and I'll be in touch. All right, back to the podcast.
Could you give me a couple of examples? You've talked about like having a plan. So whether that's having a plan at the plate, or having a plan, as a pitcher. Maybe just like at the plate. Can you give me a couple of examples of what you would consider to be a good example of having a plan when you go to the plate?
Yes. So I think that here's something we need to talk about first, right? Is like we talk about plan versus approach because I think sometimes, and maybe I haven't done a good job of educating people on this too, is what's the difference between the two? So a plan is is specific to the situation. Okay, you take into consideration the pitcher, the umpire, the environment, the weather, whatever it is. And so a plan could be, if this pitcher is pitching outer half, and you just live in outer half, whatever, and it's maybe your plan is like, hey, I'm going to go up there, I'm going to look middle away, and I'm going to refuse to chase in. Whatever happens, I'm that's my I'm convicted. Like that's my plan. All right. So that's an example of a plan. An example of an approach is that's your own internal hitting philosophy, I would say. So it's maybe an example would be, hey, I have a gap to gap approach. Or for myself personally, it was right center field gap. I always needed to think oppo more than anything else whenever I'm hitting, because if I didn't, then I'd start flying open early. So your approach is your internal hitting philosophy, whatever that is, how aggressive you are, two strikes, all that stuff, and then your plan is specific to that situation. And your plan, and this is a great point. I was talking to someone not that long ago about this who played a long time in the major leagues and really successful. Don't know if he wants me to say his name on the podcast, so I won't. But he said something that was really, really smart. And he said, a lot of the time, he's like, I asked him, like, what do you think the percentage of time that a major league hitter goes up to the plate and they go up to the plate and they have a plan and then they stick to that same plan throughout the entire at bat? And he said, well, hopefully 0% of the time, because what ends up happening is you see things throughout the at bat that
Mhm.
will change your plan. Now, what we ended up talking about is what you don't want to do is you don't want to change your plan based on something emotional. And that's what ends up happening, where you go up there, you swing and miss at a pitch or whatever, and you start to panic, and then you get defensive mode. Where it's like what he was saying specific is like, hey, like I see this guy, man, this guy's fastball is running way more than I thought it was when I first came up to bat here. Like now I need to think inside part of the ball, or I need to think more middle in of the plate or whatever it is. And so your plan is changing as the at bats unfolding. That's a higher level approach. Again, this guy played
Yeah.
15 years in the big leagues, but that's kind of what we're talking about. That's the difference between a plan approach to answer your question.
Yeah. I really like watching some of the top MLB hitters. If you watch them as they get deep into at bats, even if they get to one strike, two strikes, you can almost see them processing the new information that they're getting from that specific pitcher on that specific day, and they adjust their plan accordingly.
And the reality is though too, Nathan, with a lot of these kids is they don't need, when you're facing Paul Skeens, like you need a plan. Okay. You need a
Yeah.
plan. You can't just go up there and just see ball, hit ball, or what, that's just not going to work. But when you're facing a guy throwing 84 miles an hour at the high school level, you shouldn't need that specific of a plan. Okay. You're going up there, you're looking for a fastball over the middle of the plate, you're looking for something up in the zone, and you're rolling. Like we don't need to overcomplicate that, and that's the issue. Another issue with a lot of these kids is everything. They're trying to rush development when a lot of times there's no reason to rush it because they're not in an environment that says they need more expertise in something or need this specific plan or this or that or all those things. They've seen a guy throwing 85 miles an hour. Like, just go look for a fastball in the middle of the plate and let it rip.
Yeah. One thing I see with the hour plays especially is they think every time they get a strike called against them or they swing and miss that they failed. Like
Exactly.
every
Exactly. Yes. And that goes back to at a young age, and maybe Nathan, you've done this yourself too. And I'm not saying you're wrong for doing it or anyone else is wrong. My parents did it for me is when someone comes up to you, let's just say Nathan, and says like, hey, like how your boys doing in baseball or whatever, maybe you're going to be different because obviously what we've worked on together. But most parents are going to be like, oh, he's doing great. He's man, he hit over 450 last year. He hit
totally got it.
25 RBIs, this or that. Well, here's the
Yeah.
problem though, is when your son hears you say that, his mind goes, "Oh, Dad's proud of me when I'm hitting 450 with 23 RBIs." And
Yeah.
so when he doesn't hit that, then he goes, dad must not be proud. So that's the issue is at a young age, these kids hear that and the parents aren't process driven, obviously, because that if that's how you talk, then you're not process driven. And so the kids pick up on that and then just the cycle continues.
Yeah. What should we say instead as parents? Because totally guilty, by the way. Totally, totally guilty.
Well, we're all guilty, and I mean, I'm not saying that my parents did that. I mean, because and one of our first conversations, Nathan, is I remember you saying to me, is you're like, the mental game is important, but nobody's ever taught me or taught any
Right.
like how do you actually go about teaching it?
Yeah.
And I think this is a perfect first step where you should be evaluating your son is like, okay, like what are the intangibles that he's displaying throughout this game that like if he does over the course of time, he's going to be a better player, he's going to be a better person, all these things. Okay, like how is he a good teammate? When he goes 0 for 3, is he still cheering on his teammates or is he sulking on the bench? Like that'd be the things that I'd be emphasizing. Or when he does hit the ball hard, like is he running hard? Is he aggressive? Is he all these things that if they're more process driven, but they can always control them. That's the thing is you
Yeah.
want to celebrate things that they can always control and that are scalable, not just in this game, but amongst everything in life too. And what I've noticed is when you do that, the players do that, whether it be aggressive, good teammate, working hard, doing things off the field that translate on the field, where your workouts, things like that, nutrition, all these different things, their play ends up becoming a lot better and they're able to be more process driven because you can't just say, hey, we're going to be process driven. And then once the game starts, be more process driven. It's a life thing. You do it really off the field and on the field. You don't just turn it on once you step in between the lines.
Yeah. What advice do you have? Well, let me ask that a different way. What have you seen kind of in the field in talking to coaches, college coaches, high school coaches? What have you seen that has been a good example of coaches who seem to get this and are teaching it well versus the ones who are probably starting to panic right now?
Yeah, I mean, what I would say is, obviously I'm not going to mention names or teams or anything like that, but
Right.
I mean, I remember I went not too long ago. I went and visited a coach at a school, and I like when I went down there, they didn't start out very strong compared to probably their maybe the what they thought what was going to happen. And so I was really interested to see what's the vibe like, what's the energy level like, what's because this was just after man they lost another game, it was the next day. And I figured they'd be maybe even like making some jokes about, hey, like, oh geez, like, I thought I was gonna go down there and I was gonna ask, like, hey, like how's everything going or whatever. And they'd be like, well, you tell me, like, what do you think? How do you think everything's going compared to how we've been playing? I was with this guy for 2 hours. He did not mention one thing about how their team had been doing so far this year. Not once. And that I walked away. I was like, man, like that's the difference between someone who's process driven versus a younger coach. They'd be freaking out. The lineup would be changing left and right. They'd be doing new drills and new this or that, and get machines on the field that they've never done before. And that's the difference right there. Is really being patient, I would say, and having conviction in your plan as a coach leading a college program or a high school program or whatever it is, and not just panicking at the very first sign of struggle. Again, these specific coaches have been around a long time and they've seen everything, and it's probably hard to startle them because they have so much experience in this particular situation. Again, I don't want to name it, but I think that's the difference that I see.
What you talked a little bit about social media before. Like talk more about that. What's that doing to kids?
I don't think any kid actually, and this might affect our business, Nathan, but I don't think any kid should really be on social media outside of posting maybe on X for their highlights or whatever, just for recruiting standpoint. Why would any, what I personally would not be on social media had it not, if it not be for my business at all. Because what I'm trying to think of what has it done? I mean, it's what it's done. It has, I built new relationships with coaches through it, obviously, and it's definitely benefited me a lot. But from a if I go back to 17-year-old, 15-year-old brain of Patrick, he wouldn't know what to do with any of that, with a lot of the stuff he would see online. It wouldn't be good, I would say. So what I would do is, I know you're not gonna people aren't just gonna be like, "Oh, Patrick said give up social media, so we're gonna give up social media." That's not gonna happen. So what I would recommend is you give yourself a certain amount of time each day to be on social media, and then that's it. You're done, no matter what. And then I would make sure to block that so it's not late at night, or it's not directly right after a game or anything like that. I would make it so it's specific times where you're not gonna be in that emotional state. But I do think everybody can do that, and that's what I would recommend.
Yeah,
Because
same.
yeah, I mean, you have
I think
boys, like, what's your parenting philosophy on that?
well, they're not on it yet. My boys are 14 and 12, and they are. I think they're probably the outlier at this point, especially my older one
Yeah, they're not
who's
on it
now
at
in high
all.
school. No, not yet. So we've avoided that so far, but it's coming, right? Like at some point, I have to teach them how to use it rather than just prevent them from using it. I think that's the job of a parent, is to give them all the life skills they need when I'm not around anymore. But I think for me personally, I grew up before all of that hit. And so it was much more the experience of like your friends, those kinds of things. It all happened in person. And now that experience flows over from school into, these online worlds. And I see it with the kids that I coach. But the thing to remember about social media is that everyone posts their highlight reel. They don't post the day-to-day
Yeah.
stuff. They don't show you the mess that's around. Like you and I are doing it right now. Like it's a little bit of mess on that side of the camera, right? And that it's the same with baseball, right? They're not going to post. The vast majority of people are not going to post highlights from their 0 for 4 day. They're just not. And so
Yeah.
when you get on there and you're scrolling through, and the only thing you see is, oh, my friend hit 2 home runs today. Oh, my friend pitched, a one hitter, and my friend did this, and my friend did that. You don't see the 4 other games in there when they struggled, and so you don't see the full experience. It presents this artificial like look at other people's lives, and then you start to feel like you are a failure if you're not going, 3 for 4 with 2 home runs every game, or mowing down the opposing team every start. That's the danger of it. And that is, I think, the risk that people have, because that we get right back into outcomes, because all of that stuff is outcomes. We parents are bad at it too, because we'll be on
Yeah.
there posting and tagging our kids about this highlight of his first home run and his first this and his first that. And those things should be celebrated. Those things are great, and they're great moments when they happen. But I know for me, I'm trying to, especially with my kids, and then also the kids I'm coaching this year. Like I'm trying to teach them the process stuff. We were working on it last night, and it was some of them, like we're only 3 days in, so it's new to a lot of them. But we were stuck in a gym last night because it's all mud outside. But we were playing wiffle ball, and I was teaching them how to do the little thing you see college guys do when it's 2 strikes, just like as a signal to their team that they know they're on their 2-strike approach. And it was pretty fun to see these like 7th and 8th grade kids step back with a wiffle ball bat and do that thing. Really, they were doing it like dramatically as a joke, but they were starting to get it, like in just that first sort of introduction to that idea. And I think that's, for me personally, like I'm going to celebrate that more with my team and with my boys moving forward. So hopefully that can offset some of what happens on social media. I don't know that there's a way to really prevent 100% like the negative effects if they're on there. It's That stuff is designed to be like dopamine addictive. It just is. So I've used it a lot professionally too. Professionally, I think is a different game. Like it's a different game when you're using something professionally and you're sharing insights and you're connecting with other people in your industry. But that's not what these kids are doing. They're on there with this sort of extended social community. That's where it can be that that can be dangerous.
Yeah, and I think what a lot of kids, and again, talk to another college coach about this too, is like, look, the other issue with social media is these kids they're wanting to get, the gear, they're wanting the dopamine hit of followers. They're wanting, but he said, here's the reality. As a college coach, when you get here, I don't care about any of your followers online. I don't care about any of your gear. The
Yeah.
only thing I care about is, are you going to produce when the lights are on in between the lines? I don't care about anything, any of that other crap. And so
Yeah.
I think that's the thing players need to realize is like, look, all that stuff's great. And I think I said this before too when I was rewatching, I'll say it again, the Michael Jordan documentary, The Last Dance. He made a remark about, look, yeah, I got all these endorsement deals and the brand and all this stuff. The only reason I got any of that stuff is because I took care of business on the court. That was my main priority. That's where all my energy was. All that other stuff was just a byproduct of that. And I
Yeah.
think players need to realize that as like, look, the social, all that, don't NIL this or that. If you're that good, NIL money is going to be a freaking joke compared to how much money you'll make in the big leagues,
Right.
especially from a college baseball standpoint.
Right.
So keep the main thing, focus on the main thing, and everything else just suddenly happens in your favor and is a byproduct of you focusing on being the best player you possibly can.
Say it one more time as we wrap up the episode. How do you get the best outcomes? Do you get the best outcomes by focusing on those outcomes, or is baseball a weird game? You got to focus on process.
Well, that's the reality, Nathan, and you know this because you've been working with some of the biggest tech companies in the world and
Yep.
for a lot longer than I have and have more experience in that side than I have because I don't have any experience in that. But I don't know of anybody who gets better outcomes by solely focusing on outcomes. And so I think if you want to see a better outcome, if you want better stats, then you need to focus on the things that are going to create those stats, not the stats themselves, not the outcomes themselves. If you want to go 4 for 4, the reality is you shouldn't go up there thinking about 4 for 4. You should be thinking about, okay, what do I need to do to increase the chances that I go 4 for 4? And then that's what I focus on and that's what I obsess on. And that's how I evaluate myself. That's what I
Yeah.
believe.
And then 4 for 4 happens every now and then. That's
Every
how,
now and then. And again, there's so much that you can't control that. There's a lot of luck that goes into it. There's a lot of things you can't control when it comes to hitting in baseball. And so that's why it's a slippery slope to evaluate yourself when it comes to outcome.
so process over outcome. You got a shirt.
Right.
I got to get one of those shirts that says that. It says process over outcome. I wear it around
Yeah, I did
handcuffs.
make some shirts for some kids a few years ago. I think honestly, maybe we should make some more again.
We should
I
make some
just
more,
gave
put
them
them up.
away.
Cool. Cool. All right. Well, we'll wrap it up there.